Martin Cowan taking over from Nick for a while. Still live at ITB, tnoozLIVE live at ITB. Next up, we've got Mike Chuma, who's Vice President of Product Strategy and Marketing for IDeaS, which is a revenue management technology company. Mike's dragged himself away from the stand. They've launched a voice-based interface, which is quite interesting. We've had a lot of conversations around voice today. And also it's been, voice is big everywhere in the travel industry, but it's interesting that it's now getting into the sort of the B2B tech space, the revenue management area. So Mike, just give us a brief overview of what your voice-based interface does.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. This has been great. So realistically, one of the things that we have to continue to do in the technology space, and especially in revenue management, is to consider our users. So as we go forward and watch how business interactions change, especially with trends like voice interaction, we really have to start thinking about different ways to engage the user. In some cases, you could say no UI is the best UI. And if you really think a couple years down the road, especially when it comes to heavy data-centric applications, we really have to start acting differently and thinking differently as to how we interface with our systems. So when we took a look at how we could make our user interface more intelligent, easier to use, and better designed, we actually started with the future in mind. And so that's really what drove that. Secondarily, about 6 months ago, I took a look at some of the aspects of Amazon and really what they're putting a focus on, which is Amazon for Business and Google for Business, and started thinking about the applications in the office. And so if you think about a general manager who walks into a hotel, by the time he or she gets into through that front door, that somebody's already asked them for 3 things. They don't even have time to get their laptop down. So you drop that thing on the desk and you can say, show me how my day was yesterday. So really thinking with the user in mind.
Okay, and of course when you talk about the user, previously we've been talking about the user as the consumer, but you're talking about the user as your B2B client, the general manager who you were explaining before we got drowned out by the tannoy.
Yeah.
One of the possible applications. So a general manager can walk into Airtel and he can ask your voice-based interface, what was my ADR yesterday? Is that basically what you do? Okay.
Yeah, and so think about how buying for B2B, just as yourself, if you go in and say, I need to download a software application to be able to edit a video for live stream, or something along those lines, you've got to get to a point where you can treat the business user as well as you do the consumer. And so that's one of the aspects that we think of with our revenue managers, our leaders of revenue managers, or our general managers, is help me get about my day as quickly and as productively as possible and efficiently as possible. So that starts with your revenue strategy meeting to say, okay Google or Alexa or voice interaction system, tell me what my future on books is for March 31st. What are my lowest competitive rates? What are my highest competitive rates? What's my last room value? So we can start interrogating the system in a way that gives new insights and allows for organizations to work much more efficiently.
I mean, that's really quite interesting. We were talking to Travelaer earlier about bots and how bots have moved from a fairly simple, glorified FAQ really to something quite complicated that can handle disruption and rebook flights. It looks as if in revenue management, voice is now entering into a very, very sort of complicated sounding use case. I'm wondering to what extent your voice-based interface can connect with the systems. I mean, how complicated is it for the voice-based interface to connect to what would be probably the CRS to pull the pricing back? I mean, is it an API layer between, or is it more complicated than that?
No, it's an API layer in between. Okay. For how we utilize it, we build out skills, and we build out the capabilities to teach the querying system how to go and extract data. And the good thing for how we're looking at it is it actually makes us think differently as to how we're going to build out an API or a system to get a specific answer, or to even allow the user to go in and interrogate that data in a third dimension and in a way that they may not be able to do it by clicking through menus. And so it's not that complicated. The complicated aspect of is learning how to train an industry to speak in in a different language rather than acronyms and other things such as last room value.
Okay, so you have to build a sort of an algorithm in so it understands the various TLAs that we use in the business.
You've got it, yeah. And so we do build that, and we built out over 30 of such so far. There's obviously hundreds, but the platforms that we use make it actually quite simple.
Okay, so I mean, to what extent has this been IDeaS response to requests from clients, or you're almost making a decision to clients that this is what you should be thinking about? So is it a proactive or a reactive? Okay,
it's very proactive, because what we realize when we go talk to our clients is that they're saying things like, I've got to get my revenue manager, my sales and marketing manager, and my GM together in a revenue strategy meeting, and instead of going back and essentially building out reports or dropping things into PowerPoint, why can't we have that conversation as a team? And so that's really what's driving it, is making sure that you can get those teams together to have the most efficient interaction inside their conference room.
Okay, I mean that's a really sort of interesting. We're sort of looking very much on sort of tnooz's as how sort of consumer-based tech is entering into the business world, and I think this is a good example of, you know, Amazon Home, Amazon Alexa, Google Home, Siri. Those are now almost sort of consumer hardware that most people have, and now it's integrating into the business.
Yeah.
So maybe just have a sort of wider conversation around revenue management generally. I mean, another thing that we've covered quite extensively on tnooz's is Airbnb and its impact on the traditional hospitality sector, and there is a lot of coverage around people who are choosing to stay in an Airbnb rather than a hotel, not necessarily the sort of stuff that we're overly interested in. We're more interested in the extent to which Airbnb is impacting rates and availability. So from your revenue management perspective, what impact is Airbnb having, and what is the revenue management industry doing, you know, in response to Airbnb's impact on rates and availabilities?
Sure. You know, one of the biggest aspects that we deal with in conversations with many of our clients is the impact on, when you say availability, it becomes, you have a dynamic demand system that you have to account for. And so for us, on prices, when we go out, we have to expand the comp set shop. We have to start looking at ways for identifying low occupancy points, but not knowing the amount of inventory out into the market. And so basically what we've done is that we have to look at it in a little bit more of a dynamic system, extend our rate shops out. But you know, realistically, you have to focus on what you know. And so for us, as we look at how we service our clients from a competitive standpoint, we have had to a little bit sequester as such. You know, we hear a lot of chatter, we hear a lot of feedback from the market on how to handle Airbnb, but from a revenue management standpoint, it comes to supply and demand and managing that dynamic aspect of demand. So in terms
of your sort of competitor analysis that you offer, Airbnb is just another provider of hospitality that has an impact on the market.
Okay. And so, you know, they're also building out their yielding management systems and revenue management systems. And so I think, you know, as we look at how we're going to respond to that, I think there's going to be a common bond, and it's going to become a net new normal. With that demand and that inventory and that competition in the system, our AI and our machine learning will respond to that. So.
Okay. I mean, we just sort of mentioned AI and machine learning there. You know, we've got a voice-based interface now that's allowing revenue managers to ask a voice-activated device what its ADRs are and should be. So, but I mean, in terms of sort of future gazing, I mean, are we now at some point almost in revenue management technology where there's enough technology in the market that needs to be optimized, or is there new technologies, you know, further down the line that you're maybe having an initial look at, or is there enough happening now to keep you busy and focused?
There's always going to be things that we're looking forward to. But for now, if you take an idea of future gazing, I think the thing that we're looking at and interacting quite a bit on are things like customer choice pricing or attribute-based pricing. So if you take the attributes of a room, a bed, a balcony, an additional room en suite, right? And you take those, how do you then start to revenue manage the attributes of those rooms to be able to stack that room together in a way that a consumer wants to buy it? Not necessarily personalizing the booking path, but offering rates and room compositions based upon what the user wants to buy. So, I'll give you an example. I know I'm looking for a city center view or an ocean view room. Use ocean view. Ocean view is much better than parking lot view. So I want to look at the ocean, I want to have a king bed, I want to have a wraparound balcony. Am I willing to pay more for that? And what specific attributes will drive that booking behavior and drive that pricing behavior? We see a lot of our larger clients talking about attribute-based pricing. We have to figure out how to yield against that. How to be able to price. Does the pricing structure change? And can the CRSs and PMSs provide that level of data so we can start optimizing those room prices?
And is that almost a sort of back-end problem at the moment? Is that the hotel inventory isn't loaded into the systems in a way? Or is it, I'm taking my own personal, I'm looking at, you know, a leisure trip, you know, swim up rooms, they're a higher price, but you know, at some point will that product be yielded accordingly? So the first few swim up rooms are priced at an entry level, and then you know, almost like airline seating inventory. So the whole yield management based around room attributes, you're saying, is something that you're
and really what we want to call it is attribute-based price optimization. Because it's going to take
attribute-based price optimization.
Yeah, and really, internally, what we call it is customer choice. Right?
That's easier for the voice-based interface to handle. Yeah.
So, and it's that way we can start looking at what are the things that a person who is booking, that is coming to your hotel, what are the things that they really want, and can we go and find that right room to match what they expect with what they actually get. And from a revenue management standpoint, getting the right price for the appropriate occupancy, the appropriate, you know, to manage your business profit is what we're focusing on.
Okay, I mean that's interesting. I mean, there's, you know, just sort of thinking another question, but we're probably out of time, is whether it feeds into the brand.com hotel direct, because if I'm a hotel, I'm more likely to be able to manage swim up rooms than Expedia is if I put that inventory through.
Potentially, I think, you know, for us, what we look at is how do we optimize the channel mix. And if you take a look at what you're doing for brand direct, you have to make sure that your booking engine is appropriately configured and have the ability there. But for us, all we really care about, to oversimplify it, is that give me the appropriate business mix for the rates that go out to the OTAs or go out to the brand direct. Because that's what we're really trying to do, is make the most profit for the hotel in the wisest way that ensures that they are able to deliver against their price promise and the experience guarantee that they have for their guests.
Okay, the guests as well is always part of the conversation.
You always have to start with the guests, right? And so whether it be the guests in the hotel or the guests that are using your revenue management system inside the hotel.
Okay, all right, well Mike Chuma, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.